Hey fellas, it's Jaffe. I wanted to do a very fast video talking about the top games of 2018 for me personally. I'm not a big fan of big award shows. I'm not a big fan of aggregate awards where lots of people come together and fight over the best games. This shit's subjective. It's art. It's creativity. So here are my own personal games of 2018 that meant a great deal to me. Some of them came out last year, actually, or the year before that even. But these are the games that in 2018 that I loved, that moved me, that excited me. We're going to kick it off briefly with the top 3 honorable mentions of 2018. The first one is a game that I live streamed. It was called, or it is called, Gris. You may have heard of it. You may have seen it. A lot of the critics are going apeshit over this title. Here's what I'll tell you. It's the most beautiful game of the goddamn year. It's gorgeous. The people who made this game look the way it looks are a crew to watch. It animates beautifully. It moves beautifully. It is goddamned impressive. However, it's boring. It's arty-farty. It seems like it has something to say, but I tell you what, as a guy who was an English major that's used to sort of parsing language and studying symbolism in movies and all sorts of things, I couldn't tell you what this fucking game's about. But I'll tell you that it definitely seems to think it's about something, and that bothered me. However, the art was beautiful. The evocative sense of place was beautiful. The sound was beautiful. And on top of it, it actually did have some really cool platform puzzle game design, which I really, really enjoyed a great deal. So I'm not all anti-Gris by any means, but I definitely think it's one of those games that, because it's sort of wearing the cloak of artistry, it's bamboozled a number of game journalists, and they've thought it's more than it is. But I'll tell you what it is. It's impressive, and it's from a team that really should be paid attention to, because Gris is pretty fucking cool. It just ain't what they're saying it is. The next game, which to me gets an honorable mention, is David Cage's Quantum Dreams Detroit. Overall, I did not like this game, but I loved what this game was trying to do. I think the story is fantastic, to the point that it's better than most video game stories, hands down. It probably could be a movie or a TV series. That's how good it is. Yeah, it's on the nose a lot with its whole Android civil right take. I get that. That could be toned down a little bit. But overall, it's clever. It's interesting. The story, the characters, it's really good. It's really well done. It's probably the best story Quantum Dream has ever worked on and written. So it gets an honorable mention for that. It also gets an honorable mention because it ultimately is probably, when it works, which is rarely, more often than not, I think it pushes back against the player's desire to do what the player wants to do in this game. But when it all comes together, the game mechanics, the gameplay, the story, the tone, the theme, when it all comes together, it is unlike anything you've ever played, and it really does give you a sense of the future of the medium. Now, I do not think the future of interactive storytelling is going to be done this way. I think ultimately it's going to be AI written in real time, very much like the holodeck. I don't think any of us watching this right now will be alive long enough to actually see that come to fruition, but ultimately this is kind of like it's almost like cave painting on a wall compared to, you know, sort of the Sistine Chapel, right? Ultimately, this is a hint of what humanity is going to reach for when it comes to putting people in a story and letting them live the story. And I think in that, when it works, it gives you a glimpse of that future, and it's utterly brilliant, and it's worth paying attention to. I just think it doesn't quite work overall, but it's ambitious, it's cool, it's worth paying attention to. It's got too many problems to make my top 10 list. The final game I wanted to show you guys is a game called Time Spinner, which I was turned on to by Colin Moriarty's tweet about this. Now, this probably would have been in my top 10 games, but I only discovered it a few days ago. I had never heard of this before. I mean, I'd heard of it, but no one had talked about it, so it just kind of fell off my radar. This is comfort food, folks. This is basically a 90s Sega Genesis kart game, action RPG, that makes you feel like you're a kid again in your bedroom playing on your Sega Genesis. It's really well done. It's cool lore, fun gameplay. It's just, I can't say anything bad about it, other than I think if I had played it more, it would be firmly stratified in my top 10 games of the year. But because I'm only about 6 or 7 hours in, it gets an honorable mention. Okay, let's take a look now at the top 10 games of the year for me, Papa Jaffe.